I'm here to speak to you about three things today. I'm here to speak to you about the postmodern literature, which has been created between 1945 and the present. With today's technology and the author's freedom from old conventions and topics can be brought to life in new, invigorating ways. If you could view history through the cinema produced by the likes of Steven Spielberg, would that change your perspective on learning history? And finally, we're going to look at a hero in the literature, Warhorse, written by Michael Perugo in 2011 about World War I and made into a motion picture by the likes of Steven Spielberg himself. It takes place in England and then goes on into France, and we're going to cover all of those in detail. First, I will summarize the literary period. Postmodernism or contemporary, this period blends literacy, genres, and styles and attempts to break free of modernist forms. Multicultural authors from diverse cultures have and continue to make their way onto the literary scene. The introduction of new media in which to convey literacy is revolutionary and brings with it literary challenges. The full impact and relevance of contemporary literature is too soon to tell and may be reorganized over time. Authors include Langston Hughes, W.E.B. Du Bois, Claude McKay, Jean Toomer, and of course, Michael Morpurgo. The historical period is the next part we're going to be talking about. With today's technology and today's authors' freedom from old conventions, old topics can be reintroduced in new and invigorating ways. Between women entering the workforce during World War II, the civil rights movement, and a number of wars, the world became a journal to be filled with ink from many experiences and many lands. Fortunately, for we readers who choose to indulge in these new authors, but prefer to savor them over a lengthy, cherished afternoon, perhaps with a cup of coffee and a dog at our feet, Michael Morpurgo's Warhorse is a gem indeed. The human hero of the story is a 15-year-old Albert Narracott. He's one of those characters you hold near and dear to you and in your heart for a very long time. From the onset of the story, you see him protecting Joey, who is the warhorse. Joey is also the narrator of the story, a little different, but very effective. Albert protects him from not only natural elements, but from Albert's own father, who gets angry at Joey and whips him. One of my very favorite quotes from the story goes something like this. "Father," said Albert, with resolution in his voice, "I'll train Joey. I'll train him to plow all right, but you must promise never to raise a whip to him again. He can't be handled that way. I know him, Father. I know him as if he were my own brother." But sadly, when World War I reaches England, Albert's father has no choice but to sell Joey to an English army. He does this without consulting Albert, who of course is heartbroken. And after being too young to enlist, he's promised by Captain Nichols that Joey will be his own horse and he will be very well taken care of. And that starts a whole new series of the adventures of our hero, Albert Narracott. Throughout the war, Joey ends up in many different camps, so to speak. This allows Morpurgo to paint a picture for us of all sides of the war. No matter what side of the war Joey spends time with, he is known to be a very special horse, and each camp has its guardian angels who take care that Joey survives. As the war progresses, so does time, and eventually Albert becomes old enough to join the war effort through the cavalry and begin his search for Joey. His job is to tend to wounded horses who are brought off the battlefield. One wounded horse came in so covered in mud that the first order of business was to clean him off to see where the mud stopped and the wound began. Albert was so focused on his job of washing the wound and daydreaming about Joey that he didn't realize at first that he was uncovering the matching 4 white socks, the black mane and tail, and the white cross on his forehead which stands out against his red coat. Albert had found Joey after 4 long years. In conclusion, in this presentation, my objective was to convey that today's books often serve as an alternative reality, a living history in our minds and imagination. This is what today's authors have to offer, movies in our minds that through their colorful writing and limitless boundaries, we produce and direct a unique product between reader and writer. I'm really proud of my students and what we've accomplished with Warhorse. I'm share with you some of the techniques that we used. This is where they sit and they read the book, and we read it out loud. And in the actual manuscript, I have highlighted, coordinated highlighting colors with whoever's going to be reading that person. So if when the person gets to orange, it's Captain Jamie Stewart, and that person knows to read that. On the back of each one of these, there are real pictures from the internet of pictures from World War I, and perhaps what the people look like. So this is little girl Emily, and there's a picture of a little French girl from that group. Of course, this is the poster of the movie, which the kids got to watch at the end of their project. We kept track of all of the characters as we read, and each student had a folder, and they wrote down exactly what we wrote down together on the board. Each week or so, there was a writing prompt, and they had something that they had to write about. At the very beginning of school, you can see that it's not quite as much asking of them as it was as we moved along and they got better at writing. Then they had to increase their sentences per page to where they were getting into bigger paragraphs, and then it got to a culminating essay at the end. And every chapter there was actually a pretty big amount of vocabulary. They were very good about doing this, and this was something that because we did it on the board and then it was transferred to these pages, they could make up work if they had extra time. But you can see it's pretty extensive. Every single chapter has quite a bit of work involved. And then I'm very proud of my students and how they did their photo boards. They all did a photo journal, where they did like a storyboard, I should say. Samira is a very talented artist, and each chapter required 4 pictures, although they could eventually do 2 pictures and 2 haikus if they prefer. And they did really well, and it really helped them conceptualize the story as they read it and what it all meant, and they helped each other very much. This system really works well. Nothing ever goes home. Here's her haiku. So everything is just kept here so that nothing gets lost. So here's Samira's version of her vocab, and everything is just kept nice and neat, and it helps them then understand what they're missing. Towards grading time, I would then go through and I would put stickies that said missing this or missing that, and they could go through and fill that in. And one of the rewards, as we read War Horse, if they kept on track, each class, I have 2 different English classes, and each class got a fish. This one is Wilson. He's fiery red. He's named after the story Castaway. And we have this little guy over here. He's going to come out from under his bridge. They're both betas, so they can't be in the same tank. No, he's blue. He's somewhere. This one's name is Clark Kent. Go figure. But they got to vote. We did the whole voting process to learn that. And I don't see him coming out anywhere. Anyway, it's been a great experience, and we're working on the time machine now. That's our next thing, and there's one of the time machines one of the kids made. So we're having fun, and I really appreciate